You can run a successful MSP for 27 years and still walk away broke. You can bleed for your business. You can love your team. You can even serve your clients. And you can still leave your family with nothing but stress, debt, and regrets. Why? Because you believe the lie. Hard work equals value. So many of us fall victim to that. But the market doesn't buy your effort. What the market buys is your EBITDA.
Nobody buys hard work.
So here's an uncomfortable truth. Hope, it's not a plan. And the people that you love, they're going to be left to clean up your mess. Let's take a quick look at the reality for most MSP owners out there. Let's do so by really breaking it down into a model. This is how most MSP owners act, feel, are positioned, however you want to put it, about their business without even really realizing it, right? They're standing on top of it. You're proud. But what are you ultimately proud of? The effort that you're putting into it. But you're unaware that effort, the business, the asset that you've created is really a sandcastle. If we start breaking that down a bit further and we look at the top layer, usually where this whole thing starts, right? You begin with hustle. And because it's yours, right? Like no one else loves it as much as you do. All you can give it is your time. And so you throw everything you have at it until you start evolving to the next level, which is where you add some headcount, right? You've grown to the extent where you can actually start bringing people in to help share some of that load. And what really comes then after the headcount, generally speaking, it's really where you're just managing the chaos, right? Because you didn't really start off this whole idea of being an MSP to run a business, to build a business, to grow and manage these people, have a big team, have all of those interpersonal relationships that you're responsible for on top of everything else. And evolving beyond that, you end up in a scenario where you have technical mastery, right? Because at the end of the day, despite having all those people, it's still you at the top of that pyramid, right? Like where the buck stops or when the worst things happen, technically, generally, that stuff comes to you. And then to make matters worse through the whole thing, that's not really where it stops. It's an inverted pyramid for a reason, right? The thing that Arlin talks the most about is working backwards from not having an exit plan. Like when you don't know where you're trying to go, how the hell are you going to get there? How are you going to know when you get there? When you, as the MSP owner, do not know your number, you've mistaken busyness for business. Don't believe me? You probably say some things like this. I'm doing it for my family. We'll figure out the exit later. It's all going to work out in the end. But what Arlin sees on the other side is drastically different.
I had a quad bypass in 2005. Looking back, there's no question that stress was a factor in that. That weight got lifted, in 2012 when we exited.
You're building something, yes. But are you really building a company? Or are you building a coffin? So let's rip the lid off of this illusion. Profit, it is not evil. It is the oxygen. And if you don't make time for it now, then you are going to run out of time later. Your P&L is not just a spreadsheet. It's literally a countdown. What's it counting down to? To burnout, to divorce, to a fire sale of the business, maybe to an obituary that says he worked really hard, but he didn't leave much behind.
I need $2.5 million, and my net worth today is $500,000, and the business is going to be worth $1 million maybe. So I still got this gap.
You can't fix that with hope. You can't fund retirement with hustle, and you cannot build a legacy without a number. So let's take from all of the decades of experience and the hundreds and hundreds of MSPs that Arlin has worked with, and you can listen to it in the full episode if you'd like, and give you the plan, extracting it. It's what this whole episode is for, extracting the plan to get you off of the X and set you up for success on an exit. So where does it all begin? As Arlin would tell you, it all begins with the clarity of the number. Not just the number, it's your number, right? What are we talking about with the number? What's it going to take, dollars and cents wise, to set you up for the life that you want after you let go of the business? What do I, as the business owner, need to be free when I exit? And when we move up to the next phase on the pyramid, then this is really where we're talking about owner sales discipline, right? Because now that you know the number, you have to work towards it and work towards it with complete discipline. So owner led discipline. Now, how does that show up? Discipline. Can't talk and write at the same time. What you need to do is you need to block your calendar, right? You need to do the math. You need to reverse engineer yourself from the number that you need to hit, to exit, and then force the time inside your daily activities to drive the growth that you need to hit that number. Because odds are you're not there right now, and that's okay. Give yourself permission to grow. When you evolve past this level, then we move up to intentional profit, just like we talked about earlier. Intentional profit, right? Profit is not evil. In fact, you need to have it to have a healthy asset when you exit and to fuel the business along the way so that you can get there. So what do you need to do? You need to raise your prices, right? You need to manage your spend. Maybe you don't go after that shiny object every 10 months just because the contract's coming up or something new has come out. You need to build the margin into the business the entire way. And in doing so, what you'll end up with is an exit-ready business model built to be exited the entire way, right? So the next level you get to, exit ready. But this is where you're still running the business. You're running the business as if it's going to be sold. And you are pursuing the number at the top, right? This is where you're growing the recurring revenue. You've set your entire team up for autonomy. So you can actually leave the business for weeks at a time if you needed to, and the whole thing would keep running, right? And perhaps most importantly, your books are clean, right? Like auditable financials, audited financials, things that don't have all the crap that you stuff in the company so that you don't have to deal with that when you come to the table to have things reviewed. And the real power, the real freedom comes from operating this way as long as you want or as long as you need to, even if you don't intend to sell the business for 10 years, right? But you've put yourself in a position that if something happens, if some emergency comes up, which there's so many stories, and Arlin talks about some of those, where you need to sell the business, then it's not a fire sale, right? You have an asset that is continuing to grow. Maybe you aren't even going to exit. Maybe you'll hand it off or you'll bring in someone else and it'll run, but it'll still provide for you and your family and all the things that you want from your legacy. That's okay too. There's no golden rule that says you have to exit. But you do need to design the business to operate as if you were going to. Why? Arlin ends up calling that legacy by design. And if we unpack what he's talking about inside that bucket, it's really giving you back your time, ensuring that you keep your health. For Arlin specifically, it was leaning into faith. But more importantly, you have a family still when you're done with the whole thing. All of it. It's all intact.
Even if you think you're 25 years away, start today. The bites you have to take to get there are much smaller now than if you wait till you're within 5 years and then you have to take these big bites to be able to get there. And I think the key across all three of those things, accountability.
At the very top of this pyramid, just as Arlin even says, it's not necessarily just about revenue, right? It's ultimately about freedom. We dug deeper into freedom and we actually talked even more about it. It's about fulfillment, right? Those are the things that are worth pursuing. And you need to be setting yourself up for that success today in the business as you're moving forward. So each layer of this pyramid, which you can see for yourself, right? Just break it down and understand it. It's all tied to what? Mindset. You've got to get your head straight, right? The most sacred real estate in the entire world is that space between your ears. And then after you have that set, then it's all about execution. And after execution, it's having it's really clarity, but it's having clear perception over the value that you want. So value perception. All of those things work together at each one of these stages of the pyramid to build the business, to build the future, to build the legacy, which is what Arlin is known for, that you're doing the whole thing for anyway. And when you think about your business this way, the way that this pyramid is set up right here, when you zoom in, there is a future where you can leave this business with dignity, right? There is a reality where your partner doesn't resent the business or your time that you're spending in it. Your health doesn't have to collapse on exit or before. and your grandkids will still remember your name.
The money you get, that's great, but people are what matter.
Now, this isn't just about succession. It's about succession to significance. You're not building a business. You're building a legacy container, and it's time to fill it right now. So write the plan. Know your number. Build the margin in from day one, starting tomorrow. Get accountable. Probably the hardest thing to hear on this entire episode because we hate it. We avoid it. But it's true. As Arlin would say, you need to live your after on purpose. Some of you might be thinking, sounds great, Jeff, but where do I go from here, right? So this is your call to action. If you don't know your number, I want you to set 30 minutes in your calendar today. What are you going to do in that time? You're going to call your CPA. Maybe you're going to end up calling your peer group. Hell, even call Arlin. I'm certain that he'll answer. You need to ask this one question. What would need to be true in 5 years for me to walk away proud from the business? And once you sit with that question for a while and truly just like talk to think, don't try to get it right. There's no wrong answers. Just start getting it out. Then you need to ask yourself, who's going to clean up this mess if I don't? So what were the most critical pieces of the Arlin conversation that we can take away, that we learned, right? Hard work doesn't equate to value. And hope is not a plan, not for your business or anywhere else in life. Time is your most loyal yet most misunderstood partner. And if you want to know what really echoes after you're gone, it's not your revenue. It's how you showed up for your people.
When I'm 80 years old, what do I want my grandkids and great grandkids to say about me?
Now answer that question right now while you still can. This episode of the Whiteboard series of the MSP Insider Show is Hope is Not a Plan, the MSP exit lie that is destroying legacies. Brought to you and distilled from my conversation with Arlin Sorensen. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Whiteboard series on the MSP Insider Show. We'll see you next time.